in retrospect, when I think about the debt aspect, I would have chosen to obtain my education in a more financially practical way. I think that, and when we were coming up, if your parents didn't have money for college, you just thought, well, I got to go to school and I'm just going to have to get these loans. And you didn't really, at the time, you didn't focus on what paying that back was really going to look like.
Yeah.
You should.
It didn't really register.
Million years
And
away.
it was a million years away, and you thought, oh, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Right now, I just got to get my degree. I just got to get that piece of paper.
So, and I'm glad because we have a nice broad range. We all have different experience here. So I want to talk about college. Can we talk about college real quick? College education. So, the reason why I want to talk about college now, outside of consumer debt, the biggest debt, I don't know, actually, college student loans might be larger than consumer debt, but I'm going to say consumer debt is number one, credit card debt in the country, and then comes college school loans, right? So I want to set this up. Now, college in the last 30 to 40 years, as we all know, has gotten way, way, way more expensive. Now, just with my own experience, I did go to college. I would say that if I had to do it again, I'd do it differently. But one of the things that's interesting about college now, between the 70s and the 90s, I was in college in the 90s and to the early 2000s. In the 70s, college was very cheap. 60s and 70s, college was very cheap. The rise in college went up extremely by the time we got to the 90s and 2000s. And I mean, it went up, it way outpaced inflation. So one of the things I noticed, we all noticed, one of the things that made college, more enrollment in college for everybody is because the aspect of the job market and the ideal that everyone needs a college degree. And that was definitely marketed heavily during the 80s and 90s. And now I'm not against college, but what we noticed is that people didn't have a lot of college debt going back 30 years, or school debt going back 30 years. That stuff is fairly new. And I wanted to just, before I get into the videos and, you know, all that, I want to get everybody's opinion and experience if you guys have went to college or what you feel about college, because I would say there are more people in the country with school debt that if they had to do it, they may have done it differently. And let me say one quick thing before I let it go. What's interesting is throughout my time during high school and in those years, now, the Pell Grant and all the other grants, they made it very easy to borrow money for school. But if you want to get a business loan, you could get $50,000 to go to school like that. They give it out just as easy as credit cards when you turn 18, right? Because that's another thing you get when you're 18. But to get money to do other things that may be beneficial for you, is much harder, as we know. So, and we also have the aspect of trades that were diminished in school. So trades, they started to fade a lot. You know, I think there was still auto shop in the 90s, but and wood shop, and all these trades started to really fade away. And you just had, you either go to college or you're going to fail. And that was what was marketed to the kids. So I think it's a very interesting thing. Again, I'm not against college, but I want to hear everybody's opinion and or experience on what you feel about college. Gina,
Okay.
the educator amongst us.
Yes. I did go to college. I went to two HBCUs. I started at Morgan State. Then I had to come home because I had my son. And then I went back to UDC, which is the University of the District of Columbia. Totally different majors and everything, right? Um, I loved college. Yes. The experiences, the long lasting friendships, um, that I gained from those experiences are just they can't be replaced. So I'm so for college, right? Now the debt that part, yeah, I'm not happy about that part. And I agree with you. Like I think I would do it a little differently too. um because it's crazy that that's what that I just thought about that the other day too. I'm like, look at all these kids now just going for trades. They don't even want to go to college at all. It's not even a thought. You know what I mean? And they're doing
Hmm.
so much better than people who have degrees, masters, even doctorates. You know what I'm saying? So it blows my mind. Um, but yeah, what you said was just right on the nail on the head. When you said that the trade went down when we were coming up, it was you better go to college, you better get that degree, you better get yourself a job, and that's just the way it goes. Or get in the government, so you have that job that you know is consistent, it's not going to go anywhere, so they say. You never know. But I mean, that was just embedded in us, and so that's what I did, and that's what I thought I had to do
Hmm.
to make it. And it's like, now, just being a little personal, my son, he didn't want to go to college at all.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you gotta go, you gotta go. And then my mom had to sit me down and say, listen, he is not you. He's not you. He has to find his
Mm.
own path, and times have changed. You know what I'm saying? So let him do what he wants to do. And so now that's what he's doing. He's doing trade to get into HVAC. That's his focus. That's what I said. Yeah, you'll always have a job in HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
know,
that's
Those
so
are high
incredible.
in high demand, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
yes,
I saw something recently. It was saying like plumbers, HVAC, and welding.
yes,
Those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones
yes.
that don't have enough people, and they're about to be paid a lot
Oh,
more because of
absolutely.
it.
That's incredible that
Yeah.
just to jump in real quick. That's incredible that your mom had that conversation with you. I think that's so dope
Mhm.
because, had she not had that conversation with you and not giving you the aspect to see, well, you know what, there are other paths.
Right.
Um, and it's interesting because the trades are now people are starting to catch on, and I feel like people are starting to realize HVAC, plumbing, electricians, all these things that we weren't blue collar things that we were thinking like, oh, you don't want to be blue collar, you want to go get your degree and sit in the office,
Yep.
which is okay too. But we, for a time, that was like the only narrative. Like there was no conversation in high school with guidance counselors about doing any trade. People
No,
just look down on that. Oh, you're going to be a
true.
plumber. Now they're looking and saying, yeah, there's people who are electricians, plumber. They're making six figures. They have no debt. Meanwhile, like you
Yeah.
said, people with degrees, depending on the degree you have, you know,
Yeah,
you're
the
in a real
master's degree working
situation.
at Starbucks.
So
Like, yeah, it's a different world.
yeah, it's it's incredible. It's incredible. So it's not a one size fits all. So I think it's so dope that your mom had that conversation with you
Yeah,
because
I did. Because I was,
you know,
it was really getting to me, as a mom. I'm like, why isn't he listening? Why isn't he doing this? Am I doing something wrong as a mom? You know what I mean? Like, I was really battling with this. And she was like, calm down. Like, he's going to be okay. And it took a while for him to figure it out, because I just was like, I wanted him to do something. You know what I mean? So he
yeah,
finally took his time and he said, this is what I want to do. Now he's taking classes, he's taking courses, he's on the path. I'm like, okay, I see where you're
yeah,
going, because that could have drove a wedge between us, what I
right,
mean, mother and son. So So I'm glad he found that path. I'm like, listen, anytime something's broke over, you just come fix my stuff for free. You know,
you gonna save a lot of money.
For real.
yeah. So I'm
You
like,
about to save a lot of money.
yeah. So I'm like, you know what? That's great. That's a great path for you. I mean, this college debt is no joke. It's no joke. You see how many people are begging for Biden to clear our debt? I mean,
Yeah.
it's over our head. It's something that's always looming. It's always there. And you don't like, I know I don't like that weight on me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Always there. Yeah.
Mm.
I think that I would have done things differently as well. I mean, I loved college. I loved grad school. I enjoyed all of it. And I really liked the school that I went to. However, in retrospect, when I think about the debt aspect, I would have chosen to obtain my education in a more financially practical way. I think that, and when we were coming up, if your parents didn't have money for college, you just thought, well, I got to go to school and I'm just going to have to get these loans. And you didn't really, at the time, you didn't focus on what paying that back was really going to look like.
You should.
It didn't really register.
A million years away.
It was a million years away, and you thought, oh, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Right now, I just got to get my degree. I just got to get that piece of paper. You were trying to make your parents happy. You were trying to have a certain status and trying to do all these things. And then now, fast forward 25 years later, and it's time to pay the piper. You're like, damn, how much I got to pay a month? And for how long? And then they make it so there's no way to get out of these loans. You can't file for bankruptcy. The only way to get out of these loans is to
die.
To die. I was gonna say the same
or
thing.
die. Those are your two options. You got to be permanently disabled to where you can never ever work ever again in life, or die.
Yeah.
So it's like you're almost it's almost really discouraging because you're like, man, will I ever make enough money to pay these off?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would have definitely done things differently. And I do agree that times have really, really changed. Like right now, I have, unofficially adopted my best friend's daughter, who is 19 years old, and she doesn't even have to pay for college. She has a GI Bill, so she can go to school and get that ride. But I think that she's taking her time a little bit because A, she doesn't have to worry about paying for school, and B, I think the generations coming up now is thinking a lot more strategically about what they want to do.
And our parents what we fell for.
No, they're not. They're not going for the let me just go to school and I'll figure it out later. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, do I really want to spend 4 years in school? And if, what do I really want to do? And what does that require? Like some people, they want to do hair and nails. That doesn't require going to a university to do that.
Right.
Some people can be very successful and be very lucrative in that sense. So I think the reemergence of specific trades and specific paths of certain careers, it is great that that's coming back, especially those of us who have children that will be entering the college arena, not anytime soon, but,
some point.
at some point, just, I don't know. I would have definitely done things differently. And I think that debt is, it's a trap.
It is. I would
It's
have
a
done
trap.
things differently. I would not have done things differently, but I did not go to school. And see, the thing is, I might not have the best judgment when I'm being robbed and they're trying to take my makeup. But at that age, I was like, I'm not about to get all these bills. Like, why would I do that? Why would I have, and people, I remember I was like, I don't have the money. I remember a friend, this older friend said to me, well, you should really go to school. You're so smart. You do so many things. You should go to school. And I was just like, I can't afford that. And she's like, well, get loans. And I'm like, like I'm not. I saw the trap when I was that age, and I was very lucky that my mom was very supportive with whatever I wanted to do. And I mean, she used to let me follow Mariah Carey around the world. Like the thing she let me do. Mariah Carey's backup singer. We're like friends, and I saw her in Vegas recently, and she was just like, I still think about what your mother let you do. I mean, you were like following like all the shows in Europe and Chicago. You were at the Oprah show. She's like, I can't believe your mom let you do that stuff. But I was always very strong willed, very, very focused on what I wanted, very clear about what I wanted. And my mom just kind of let me, I was her last kid. She had me when she was 39, had her first kid at 21. She was like, do what you're going to do.
You was tired by
She
then.
just she was
There you go.
tired, yeah, and I always had like a trick up my sleeve. I was like, maybe we could do this or that. So I always had something, but I was very focused on music, and I started recording when I was 14. That's how Shy and I, know
Yeah,
each other.
yeah,
I
yeah.
um I was very clear that I didn't need a degree, and I had my aunt she was a teacher, and she was like, oh, you should just be a teacher, teach music, and I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I don't want to teach music, and I knew that there was never going to be a room that I'd walk into in music, in the music industry, or in the entertainment business in general, for me that it would require a degree. I knew that that was never going to come up, and I wasn't going to spend the money and the time doing that. And I've always been a learner. I've always been interested in education and just learning, but I got that other ways. And I flew free, so I would travel
Mhm.
and I would do things and learn about the world that way. and surround myself with people that I could learn from, and people that different interesting things. And so I got it that way, and I would not change it, not for a second. And I'm not I don't have the money. That I think, when when you're younger, you're like, oh well, by this day, I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And things don't always go as planned. And
Yeah,
so
of
of
course.
course it's not exactly what I imagined, right? But I wouldn't change it. And now I actually started a startup recently, a beauty tech startup. And the same thing. I mean, in that world, it's interesting to me because degrees matter a bit more. Um, if I weren't the founder of the company, a degree would matter. And I wouldn't be able to work in this space. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't
Right,
have a degree and I didn't found the company.
right,
But because I did, I can. But I'm much more lenient in that way with the people that I'm hiring. Like we have a team. There's 5 of us now, and for me, the degrees don't matter as much as what they can do and their skill set and their talent and their commitment and all of those things. And can they get the job done? And that's what I'm concerned about because I think I just have a lot more empathy for that type of situation. Some of the most brilliant people that I've known haven't necessarily had a degree, and
yeah.
I think it doesn't necessarily define you in that way. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on that, Ian. I'll let you hop in. Alicia, that's a great point because, what I do notice is that, so the term entrepreneurship is something that has, I think people understand it more. People have pursued it more. And it used to be, when you used to say back in the day, I want to have my own business, all the people who were part of that program would kind of be like, okay, you're going to be broke. Are you
Oh,
going to be
right.
and do nothing? Huh? Okay, cool. Are you going to be an entrepreneur? Well, still go get that degree. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
what people understand now, just to your point, you made a great point in saying that, yeah, if you may not be able to work in a certain space, but if you start the business,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right,
And I mean, and
you
yeah, exactly. Right. If you start the
have the
business,
freedom. You're
and,
you're
right,
you
and
you
the
starting
crazy
the
thing is,
business,
I'm the dumbest one on the team by design. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
right?
I knew that my strategy had to be because it's a beauty tech startup. And so it's AI and it's robotics. I'm a songwriter. I'm a singer. Okay.
Right.
I don't know nothing about all that. So I had to be strategic and surround myself and, hire people, get people on the
Mm-hmm.
team that that are just brilliant at what they do. So I have like a cosmetic chemist and an engineer and a project manager, and then someone else I call her my STEM queen. She's an educator, but she's just brilliant in all areas of STEM, and she's 3D printing like wizard.
That's
Like
dope.
3D printed a leg like for a little girl in Ghana. Like she's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and the water filtration systems for people in Ghana and Kenya. So, with her students, they went over there. And so, yeah, I mean, she happens to be educated, um, very educated. And, but yeah, I knew I had to surround myself with them because I don't have
And
the
that's the
skill set.
smart thing to do, and that's what real entrepreneurs do anyway. Most entrepreneurs they have the vision and they have the the guts or the balls to do it, and then from there, yeah, you get talented people around you. So, and that's the whole thing. That's such a good point, and the reason why I'm kind of stopping on it because that's how the world actually works. I mean, there's a place for people who are chemists, engineers, people who go to school for certain things who want to work for companies. Not everybody is going to be the CEO and start a company, but you have people who come up with ideas and there's a place for everybody. And I think that that's what I think young people are people now and you understood, of course, too. And I've had a lot of people in my age range, peers of mine who understood that too. And they understand that, okay, cool. A degree may not be for me, but I know other things that I can do in my strength. And there's always a place for people who do have a degree to be in a certain space too. So
And that's what
understand
I wish
that
they
it's
would
not.
teach in school.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, oh, sorry. I was just going to say that's what I
Yeah,
wish that they would focus on with young people more is zeroing in on your strengths and your passions and the things that like what really makes you tick and that they're not pushing that. It's like go into something stable, go into something just find something that
Mm-hmm.
is going to make you money or whatever. And people are unhappy. I know doctors. I have friends who are doctors and lawyers who are like they do it because they kind of have to do it at this point. Like they
yeah,
don't have to, but it's a lot harder to start over once you get to a certain age, and so they do it and they're miserable. And then some of
yeah,
them are so happy in those jobs and they love it. And so, it could be either, but it's really important to get into things for the right reasons. And
right.
I wish that they push that more with young people.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
two things. One, and I'm gonna let you rock in. If you're living your purpose, someone who's living their purpose, who went to school or did whatever they did, as long as you're living your purpose, you'll notice that with people when they're living their purpose. And everybody finds it at different times, and sometimes your purpose evolves. As we all know. But I think that going back to why they don't push that, I think that the college hustle was a cold hustle. And I'm going to play something in a little while, but when they started to introduce certain grants, the government started to introduce certain grants, there was a great incentive for schools to raise their prices. And that's what it was. So it became something where now everybody need to go to college. And I think obviously the motive was the money. But what they found now is that the cost of college way outpaced inflation. A lot of people took on college debt or school debt. And then you have them enter in the job force, and those jobs, the wages don't keep up with the cost of living. So most people can't really afford it. And when you're talking to someone who's 17 or 18 years old, paying them loans back are lifetimes away. So now people can't pay it. There's 45 million people with student loan debt now, probably can never pay it. And it's essentially just become a big debt black hole that is not going to be paid at anytime soon. So I think that they didn't push people to find their purpose and all that. One, because they wanted to, colleges, became a hustle. And two, quite honestly, the way people make money at the end of the day isn't necessarily through a degree. That's why I said in the early on is that, you know, they don't say, you know what, maybe you'd be better for a business loan at 18 or 21 or
Right.
22, right? I'll give you 50,000 or 100,000 to go to school like that. All you got to do is sign the papers. Let's see if your mom and dad, like you said you didn't have the money, but had you tried to apply for a Pell Grant, they just check your mom's income and said, well, your mom don't make enough, so no worries. She can't sign for the loan, but we'll give it to you. But it's a necessary step to make
Mhm.
sure parents can't afford it. They can't afford it, no problem. Cool. We're going to put it on you. You'll pay it back. Sign these papers. Okay, cool. Now you can get it. And you'll get that money to go to college that quickly. It happened. I
Yep.
did it myself.
Absolutely.
But if you go to Bank of America or Chase or Fidelity or anywhere and say, I'd like to start a business for my beauty tech startup,
Mhm.
you're like, hell no.
Right. Absolutely. They're saying hell no now.
Right,
Like, and I'm
exactly.
not 18. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an
It's
interesting
hard.
thing. But Ian, go ahead and rock off. What was your experience? I know you were a Marine, so tell us what your experience was at that age.
Well, yeah, I joined the Marines, and after I came out the Marines, that's when I decided to go to college. At
Okay.
at that point, I was more focused on, I would have been a better student after the Marines than before. However, I still only did a year and a half, and then I stopped because
Okay.
the Marines set me up. The mentality for me, I had enough years of saying yes sir, yes ma'am. I was like, I came out, I was like, I ain't doing that shit no more. I wanted to work for myself. So one of my favorite professors he helped me back after class. He says, well, you're a non-traditional student. So, you know, what is it that you want to do? And at that time I was driving a bus part-time. I was doing transit part-time, and I had an academy bus. I said, I think I want to own a bus company. I kind of like the vibe with getting to talk to people, this and the other. I want to own a bus company. His response to me is, okay, so why are you here? I said, well, to get a degree, I'd be the first one in my family, and, in particular on my mother's side, I would have got the degree, blah, blah, blah. So I said, well, that's noble. But you said you want to learn, you want to own a bus company. What are you doing here that's going to teach you how to run a bus company? So basically, and I was like, the light bulb, I was like, okay. He says, education can be received anywhere. Go into the setting where you want to learn and go from there. So that's basically what I did. I ended up starting a limousine business because it was easier. Buy my own personal Lincoln Town Car, use that as my, thing, and then spread from there. And then thanks to 9/11, that ruined my business immediately because nobody was going to the city, nobody was going in and out of the airport, and the New Jersey-based business in particular, everybody was terrified of New York.
Yeah.
And then I remember Michael Moore documentary. I still had the I'm going to work for myself mentality. So I asked myself, what business could I get into in this economy that would survive? And I remember Michael Moore's first documentary film, if I'm not mistaken, it was called Roger and Me. It highlighted the GM plant and that they were in the process of closing down, and it was showing the transformation of the middle class, upper middle class communities to, what happened thereafter. And he highlighted that to show a couple of things. One, that a lot of the social ills and crimes and things of that nature is not race specific and other things like that. So what happened when they did close up GM, boarded up houses as opposed to, affluent buildings, and homes, uh, more crime increase, more like aggravated assaults and domestic violences. And what you also saw was liquor store, church, liquor store, church. And where do we normally see that type of setup is in other economically distressed communities, predominantly black, that you'll see that type of liquor store, church, liquor store, church. So in that movie, it showed, well, with more crime, you're going to need more police, bigger jails, funeral homes, liquor stores. And so I came up to the conclusion that in this economy, this is pretty bad, with a bad economy, crime, this, that, and the other, I can either go into a liquor store, funeral homes, or bail bonds. And I didn't do funeral homes, even though coming out of a white glove type of business and giving folks the white glove treatment, I knew that even after giving the best service possible, the energy doesn't change, and I didn't want to put myself in that environment.
Yeah.
Then I said liquor stores, I can do that. But then if I see so and so or such and such coming in with an obvious alcohol problem, I'm not going to feel good about selling them that at that point. So I said, nah.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
said, bail bonds. Yo, I bail out, you know, bail bonds. People are going to want to name their kid after me. Hey, thanks for getting me out of jail, all that other kind of stuff. Total different
Mhm.
energy changes, everything else as well. And the other thing is, sadly, the communities that mostly use that service, like a lot of other businesses in our communities, they don't care. Those companies don't care about service and things of that nature with, serving our community. So I
Right.
said, I went to a person who owned a bail bonds company. I said, let me work here for free. I just want to learn this business. And after a few months, I transformed my limo business to a bail bonds office. And then I grew it to 4 offices over time. And then Governor Christie, in his infinite wisdom, decided to end monetary bail in the state. And
Oh man, yeah, I
so,
remember.
so I lost businesses based off of an unforeseen disaster and or signing into law
Mhm.
certain things. But I fast forward to the point is to your crux of your question. Um, like a lot of other successful entrepreneurs and billionaires, they didn't necessarily get the 4 degree, whether we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and so many other people.
Right.
So, and then, I said a saying to myself, I don't know, I never heard anybody else say it, but I've been saying this for decades. I said the fastest way to the top is to start there.
Mm.
So to Alicia's
Right.
point, being a founder of her company, she's at the top already. She isn't. She can hire anybody else to in building that foundation. As she grows and goes from that point as well. So
Yep.
that's my mindset, and I'd rather start there and be part of the decision making and putting. I know people management. I know you're the right person for that position. I might not
Hmm.
do what you're doing technically,
Mhm.
but you're the right person. Let's put you there. Put you here and fit this whole thing together and build a strong structure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that, so to the hustle part that you were mentioning, absolutely. So in particular, we're talking about Joe Biden, who led the charge to not allowing folks to add to their bankruptcy to disallow student loans to be added to that. So
Hmm. Hmm.
just to remind folks out there who actually led the charge on that, and
Right.
to no surprise, and to this is the same person who only took a little couple of dollars off of folks debt and student loan.
Right.
So I just want to remind folks as we have amnesia and selective amnesia on on,
No, it's good.
on why he only offered a little help is because he was the one that created the problem and made sure the problem was there. And
Yeah.
he has other people like tapping him on the shoulder, like, hey, don't let that money go away nowhere.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it is a hustle. I'm happy
Absolutely.
people are using their skills, their hands, and their brains in other areas and quote unquote blue collar work, realizing that if you want to make a life for yourself, if you do what you love, you don't work a day,
Right.
in your life. So it doesn't. If you don't love, so thankfully, Gina's mom spoke to her and put some words of wisdom in her to say, hey, back up for your son, back off my grandbaby, and let my grandbaby do what he gonna do. That's probably how the conversation sounded. Leave my grandbaby alone, and
Yeah.
and she's starting to realize, and so will he as he gets into these fields if he enjoys it, he might have a long day. But we all know we've been in these situations where, especially if you're doing something that you don't like, at 9 o'clock, if you get there 9 o'clock, at 9:15, you looking at your watch like, damn, it's gonna
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
long
When is
day.
break time?
Yes.
As opposed to if you do what you love and somebody like, yo, bro, you realize it's 5:15? Oh, word? I should have been out of here 15 minutes ago. That
Yeah.
you would much rather have that type of feeling and doing what you love. So kudos to all those. And if your path is through college to get there, do that. As long as at the end of the day, you didn't go to college, pay money to end up with a job as opposed to a career. And the difference, in my opinion, is the one that you love is the career. The job is the one you got to have. So,
And I
Right.
think a
you
lot of the
Right.
people that came
And
up in our era ended up kind of that way, to where like a lot of us started off not even using the degrees that we obtained, because it's like either by the time you finished, you maybe have changed your mind and like, I don't know if I really want to go into that, or you found a job that was paying you such good money,
Yeah.
you
right.
kind of, in a sense, pigeonholed yourself into a particular industry, and
Mhm.
now you spent so much time. Like, I'll use myself as an example. My undergrad degree is in criminal justice.
mhm.
I have
Wow.
never worked in criminal justice a day in my life. I intended to.
Right.
The intent was there.
Right.
But after I graduated, I had this, I don't know what I really want to do. I could not decide. And in the meantime, well, I got to work. I was just about making money at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm working, and then I find a job that at the time, hey, this is paying really good money. This is paying really good benefits. And as you get comfortable, you stay. You stay there,
Yeah.
and you work there, and you work there, and you work there. And I'm getting all this experience and skills and knowledge in a totally different industry.
hmm
And it's like, you almost have to convince yourself, well, at least I got this degree, because in a sense, when you're in corporate America, that degree looks really good on paper,
Mhm.
and people will say, "Oh, okay, well, I see you've got a bachelor's degree." They almost don't care what you got the degree
Yeah.
in.
Right.
See that
Oh man, I
you
got a
went to
point for that when
school,
you're done. Go ahead,
and
please.
you got the math, you got your degree, but you almost have to convince yourself, like, okay, I did go, this degree matters. I did go for a purpose, when you're like, I haven't done shit with this, with what I went to school
Mhm.
for. And now, 20 years later, if I want to go into what I went to school for, you know what they're looking for? Experience.
Experience. Right.
They're looking for experience. They're
It's
Yeah.
not looking
true.
for a degree.
Yeah.
They're looking
Yeah.
for experience. And now that's one of the reasons why I think so many people coming up after us are having such a hard time, because that piece of paper, it doesn't carry the same weight as it carried, because with the evolution of it being so easy for more people to go to school and more people to get degrees, they the requirements have changed, so where it's like, okay, cool, oh, you got a degree, cool, everybody's got a degree now, but how much experience do you have? So you
Yep.
find yourself stuck, because I spent all this time getting this education, but I don't have the experience.
Mhm.
And people don't want to, especially if you're a working, student, adult student, you don't want to go back to square one. You don't want to go back to
Yep.
entry level to
Right.
gain that experience.
Right.
So it becomes very, very difficult. So now people are choosing to go for the experience first, which in a way, in this day and age, at least right now, this place in time, kind of makes sense, because of 9
Yeah.
out of 10,
Yeah.
they're going to choose the person. It's like, well, he don't have the piece of paper, but they've been doing it for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on 2 points. Now it's so funny you said that. So one of the things I thought was so interesting about college is one of the things they were able to attach on with the marketing of college was something you touched on. You didn't say it, but I'm going to say it: self-esteem.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and I think the self-esteem part, how you value yourself, was probably the biggest piece that really, really pushed the college, the evolution of the price increase. Because like you said, people were like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I know I need that piece of paper, or else I ain't shit out here. I need that degree. And Alicia, kudos to you, because at that age, you were able to say, okay, I know I don't need that. And that's a tough thing when you're 18 going into the world. Now I'll say, and speak to Ian, being in the military, most of the time at that age, people would either cling to a degree. I know I need that degree. Or the other level of self-esteem would be I'm going to the armed services. You know what I'm saying? Most 18-year-olds, at least 30 years ago, 20 years ago, weren't like, I'm an entrepreneur. That meant nothing back then. That means you're a bum. You know, you're a bum. That's how everybody's looking at you.
Because that was
You know?
the age of brick and mortar businesses. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
you could say unless you had real foresight, you were like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm somebody. There, you know, at that age, you're really like, well, who am I? And you, like you said, a lot of more brick and mortar businesses. You have corporate America. Well, am I going to work in corporate America, or am I going to definitively go into a trade? And unless you had someone else who was in a trade, who you were able to, you know, you had a dad or an uncle, somebody you worked up under, you might say, well, I'm going to be a contractor. And you could go into that definitively because you had that. But if you're 18 and you don't know what you want to do, the self-esteem piece is so deep, because if you are trying to have some level of self-assurance about yourself, you're like, you know what? I'm going to need that degree. Guidance counselors also too. They're not like, well, they might ask you what you really want to do, but what you really want to do is about what you really want to do to get to college, not what you're going to do once you get in college and how you're going to use college. So I think that college has never been a bad thing, but some people got in, knew what they wanted to do, and did it well, and it worked. But others, that idea of it being tied to my sense of worth, that is the strongest thing to sell. I mean, that's how you sell anything. Clothes, food, you know, anything. That's how you sell it. If you attach it to people's self-worth, it's amazing. So I wanted to just say that. And then outside of that, I think, again, like you said, people are saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to find experience. You know what I'm saying? And now we're in a world now where it's becoming very interesting. So you have being an entrepreneur obviously is much more dynamic now, because we have a whole new type of economy now. You know, the internet, the way it is now, which we didn't have 30 years ago. So people can legitimately start real businesses, and you could be a YouTube influencer, TikTok influencer. You could, you know, have your online business. And one of the points I wanted to make too is that now it's not just whether I work here or do nothing. Now people are more dynamic now. So everybody has multiple streams of income or multiple streams of things that they're doing and trying to do. So I think that's why I think one of the benefits for the younger people right now, the millennials and Generation Z, I guess it is now, they come after them, I don't know. But the young people, the 20-somethings and unders, they're able to look at stuff now and say, you know what? Even if I go work somewhere, that ain't going to be all I'm going to do. Because I got this other thing I'm doing. I got this other side thing I'm doing, and that's going to be big one day. So I think that that's a positive thing. The last thing I'll say about that point is that in and of itself, college, that's why college shouldn't be so expensive. Because college, you know, when you're going to college, most of the time, the first year to 2 years, you're doing the prerequisites, right? So a lot of people are not sure what their major is going to be and things like that. But man, that money that you're borrowing, it's clocking. You're spending from day one.
There is.
You know what I mean? So
it's generating interest
100%.
daily, practically.
100%. You know, so I think that we have the benefit now where I think a lot of us at our age now are kind of like you said, like Gina said, you know, you're not looking at your son, you know, once you talk to your mom, you're not looking at him saying, well, you got to go. It's more like, okay, I'm open in understanding the other avenues. And I think that that will help. I don't want my kids to have student debt.
I just want to make I just want to make a 30-second point that I think you guys were going to lead to earlier, but we never got to the conclusion on. I heard a lot of people say, I went to college, I got a degree, but I would have done it differently. But for those who are unaware what some of that might mean, and you guys can color in the rest, that I would have gone to community college, got my 2-year associate's degree, and then transferred to that 4 year college, realizing that my 4 year bachelor's degree looks the same as somebody who paid 4 years of school at that same school.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and I just wanted to just articulate that because it's important to make sure we communicate not with the assumption that somebody already understands what we meant. So I want to make sure. I think that's what some of y'all might have been hinting on. But
You
if
hit
there's
the nail
something
right on
else,
the head.
right? If there's something else, coloring those lines. But I just wanted to say that before you went to the video.
No,
No,
you hit
thank
the
you.
nail on the head exactly with
Yeah.
that. I think I would have done it a lot more economically
Yeah.
if I could have, and perhaps maybe waited a few years to really hone in on what I wanted to do, because at the time when I started school, honestly, I feel like now, and I didn't really realize it, but I went to school for the wrong reasons at the time. I was going to school because that's what my parents wanted me to do. That's what I was always ingrained in my head looked good. You know, you don't want to embarrass your parents. There's a lot of cultural aspects to it. But I went to school because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do. And I looked at it as a formality because at the time I was interested in music. I was singing, I was writing songs, and that's all I cared about. And at the time, I still thought I was going to have this, blow up stardom, and school wasn't going to even matter. But I told myself at the time, well, that's what mom and dad want me to do. And of course, that's what looks good for them. I can't be, one of their children that didn't go to college because it doesn't look good, yada, yada, yada. So I went to school as a formality. And my whole mindset, honestly, if I'm being 100%, my whole mindset was fucked up. I wasn't even really, I didn't do well in undergrad. I was an average student in undergrad. And it wasn't because I'm not smart. Because in grad school, I got just under a 4.0. I got straight A's. The only reason I didn't get a 4.0 in grad school is because in one class I got an A minus. In all my other classes, I got straight A's in grad school. That's the only reason I missed the 4.0. I got 3.97 because my very first class, I got an A minus. I could have done the same in college, but the reality was back then I didn't care. I just wanted a diploma. I didn't study. I didn't care how I did in the class. As long as I passed, that's all I cared about. Because my mindset, my focus was on a whole different career. And I think that if I had waited a few years, if I had waited till I would say 25 to start college, my whole mindset would have been different, because by the time I turned 25, my thoughts and my reality about my music career was completely different. So I would have been a different type of student. And I probably wouldn't have gone to a school that was so expensive either. So I think that for all the listeners out there who are young or even who are middle aged and maybe considering going back to school, my advice would be really give some thought to what you want to do. Try to be specific, try to be directed, and try to be as economical as you can possibly be, because you can still accomplish that without going into debt.
Right.
Well,
And
I think. Oh, go ahead, Ian. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. And also from our era in particular, another thing that pushed us at that time was, especially in our community, was like shows like A Different World that kind of made college the college.
I was just thinking about that.
That made that look so attractive. In addition to that, so but to the young folks listening, or to the parents that have young folks on their way to college, look for the more economic route, because some of the other things that we mentioned, we think we have a consumer mindset in this country in particular with brands and brand name things. And that also, as we see colleges are marketing themselves, the brand name on the college is a lot of
It
times
makes
what we're paying for more so than something else. So you have to
Bingo.
ask yourself if you want the education or you
Yeah.
want the Nike logo that looks good on that same shoe that was made at the same sweatshop as the one selling at Walmart, for
right.
10% of the cost. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
Exactly.
that let's think about that. If you want to get the education, look for the most financially prudent route to get that education as opposed to
Absolutely.
the brand that's on
Oh
brand
man.
label that's on that thing. I just wanted to say that.
No,
Yeah.
listen, that right there. I'm so glad you said that because I was thinking about the Cosby Show and I was thinking about Different World, and I think that imagery is good. It's inspiring to go to college, but that part, what you just said, is still necessary because they didn't provide any alternative, and you know what I mean. And also, Twin, when you said about waiting, that's what makes young people, well, at the time, our era, people were scared about waiting because they're like, yo, 23, you haven't went to college yet. You should be graduated by now. So I think people are now a little more comfortable with waiting.
Mhm.
Um, and, you know, I think it's not as taboo anymore, but, 20, 30 years ago, yeah, if you waited, people like, yo, well, what are you going to do? You just going to work? You're just going to get
Right.
experience, so
People
let
look
me
down.
play this video real quick, just, same context of what we're talking about. I just want to share this real quick.
Concerns about tuition and the high cost of college have been around since 1900, and they really started to rise in the 40s and 50s. And so Congress comes in and they say, okay, well, we want to help people pay for college. We'll do it through student loans.
The federal government started financing the college system when Lyndon Johnson signed the Higher Education Act of 1965.
If we reject learning, we render ourselves dead to the past and lost to the future.
Since then, generations of leaders have approved changes to the act to influence how money flows into the college system.
When Congress created this program under the Higher Education Act, it gave schools an incentive to raise their prices. Because think about it, each student now has a voucher to pay for college. So this became a really big way for schools to make money through student loans. And so it gave kind of this perverse incentive for schools to raise their costs. Instead of competing on price, a lot of schools actually learned they could actually charge more, not less, if they could convince their students that they were prestigious.
For example, say a student from California receives Pell Grants and loans from the federal government. They're free to spend that money at the school of their choice. Some students opt for an in-state education, but others can be lured by an attractive amenity or a key research program, and they can take those dollars out of state. This incentivizes schools to spend more on programs and facilities and ultimately charge more for tuition. But those increased costs affect every enrolled student.
And that's interesting. So that timeline, 1993, I'm glad we put that out there because that was around the time, a little after that, I went to school and to college. I started in 96, 97. So it's such a great point. So when they're saying in 93, it was just subsidized loans and then went to unsubsidized loans, I definitely saw that because then at that point, they're saying, you know what, regardless, what we'll do, like I was saying earlier, we'll first run it by and see what your parents can afford. Don't worry about it if they can't afford it. It's just that we have to go through that process. They're not going to be able to afford it. You'll be able to take an unsubsidized loan out. And that's what started. I think that's what really started the balloon of student loans in the 90s. So
Well,
it's...
we also saw, supply and demand does determine price, right? So we also saw a balloon in recent times in a different area because of the monies and people got free money and extra additional monies during the time when COVID. What happened to the housing market and rents and things of that nature? It just shot up because people are like, well, you got more money to pay.
Right.
It went, talk about a balloon. It just went, it went crazy. So it's not surprising. I don't know why Well, I don't think that they didn't think that wasn't going to happen, but I don't know why they thought that was the solution. And there was no cap on anything on how high. There was no cap to, you can't cap privately held institutions on how much of a percent they can raise their,
Well,
or any private company. You can't tell them how.
you made a great point though, Ian. You made a great point, and I wanted to just tap on that point you made about the branding, and that was something that they understood because the branding of the institution is so important. So as they started to brand, that's how they can charge more, and they couldn't just charge more. You said they know that okay, these students have these grants, they can pay more, but we can't just charge more. First, we have to brand ourselves as this is a better school. This is a more prestigious school. And that ties back into a theme and what you're going to say, hey, I graduated from this school and, it's better than that school. You know what I'm saying? And I think those things weave together are a perfect storm for what we see now. And I think that,
A lot of
you know,
colleges changed into universities because they were incentivized to do so. Because they
mhm,
to be a university now. We're not no longer just a college. We are a university now,
university,
and all that marketing that they put monies that they put into the marketing, somebody had to pay for that marketing, and
of course,
guess who's paying for that? Them students. Come on in here.
yeah, of course,
So yeah,
of
it's an
course.
unfortunate situation. But Alicia,
Let me flip it. Let me flip the other side of this coin. I want everybody to speak on this too. So let's talk about the devil's advocate, right? So we have all this student loan debt. So what about the people that say, look, Alicia she knew what was up. She dodged the bullet before it came. So she knew what was up. So this may not apply to you, but what do you feel about and Ian, it doesn't apply to you either because you understood. You did it. You did it the right way too. But what about people that say, you know what? You are responsible for your choices, and it ain't my fault you got a basket weaving degree or you got a doctorate in
Not a basket weaver.
African American studies and you felt like you were going to make six figures and you don't. It ain't my fault you did all that, and now you know what I'm saying? So I think I understand that too. I'm a person that, look, I'm a person that say, I made my decisions. I made my life, whatever my life is going to be. I've handled my life well, I feel like. And I don't look for someone to correct we all make wrongs and things we would do differently. But there is that argument about student loan debt, right? People made their mistakes, and some people may say, look, I went to school and paid my debt off, or I made better choices to go to school, so I don't have as much debt. So why should these people have their debt forgiven? Now,
Oh,
no, go ahead, Alicia. I'm going to say my point, and then you can
go
rock.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say that I see both sides of it, but I do feel like we have to acknowledge that these loans were given, I think, in a predatory fashion.
That
And
well, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say you're
what,
talking about a predatory system. So I don't know if you can put all of that on individuals who fell victim to the system. Like or just were heavily influenced by the social pressures to be a part of that system.
Mhm,
So I don't know. I don't know that you can really put that on people who were just trying to keep up with society and do the right thing.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know,
That's true.
so
That's true.
not for personal responsibility, I am.
Same, yeah, but yeah.
But I do think that at the time you're getting these loans, what do you think, G?
I
Well,
mean,
you
like an
did.
18-year-old, what is an 18? I mean, maybe I knew a little something, but for me, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna spend money on something I don't want to do. I'm like, why would I do that? But I think that most people don't think that way. And I also was very passionate about music. And again, I mean, I don't regret it. I mean, I've written songs for, TV shows and all kind. I mean, I've written,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things that I'm very proud of, and I wouldn't change it. But I think not everybody understands themselves on that level or has like some type of passion to follow at that age.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not always so clear. I did a TEDx talk and I mentioned that I didn't start it, but soon after I started, I get into that, how we ask, 5-year-olds, what they want to be when they grow up. And if you ask me, I did know, but most of the time they don't. And you can't
Right.
trust. And so ask 5-year-olds what they want to be when they grow up. Ask 17-year-olds to decide what college they want to go to, and like what they want to do with the rest of their lives, like, and
Hmm.
make that decision now and get into a program that does that. And you don't know yourself well enough usually at that time.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm with
No,
you.
that's so
I
true.
yeah, I think it's predatory in it, and then I mean the finances. It's just crazy. I also heard that there was a racial like racist reason for some of the student loans. Well, not the loans, but the tuition going up. And I don't know. I saw it somewhere, and I don't know all the details of it. Right, I can't recall it right now. But there was something with that as well, where just in the civil rights movement, where people were now. There was a time when Black people weren't allowed to just get into college like that,
Mhm.
and
Right.
that once that became available for everyone, then it was like then there was
Try to make it
some
harder to
predatory practices.
attain.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
This, I would just say that in that realm, yeah, racism and sexism is always a factor, but in this country, racism and sexism, though actually real, were most oftentimes used as a wedge issue towards towards uh towards their classism goals. So if
yes.
so I believe greed pushed, like in a lot of other things in this uh, capitalist system, greed pushed a lot of
Hmm.
things in a certain
Hmm.
direction. And like even it's piggybacking some of the conversations like we had last week and whatnot, and other times, is once you start privatizing certain areas and industries, when people go, the purpose of creating a business is to, you want to profit from
Fine.
their business. So if there's a profit incentive in insurance companies or a profit incentive in college and profit incentive whatever, and that's the leading motivating factor, what happens a lot of times, things are going to, you're not going to get health care from an insurance company who's motivated by profit. Is you're going to get sick,
Yeah.
you're going to get sick care management. You're not going to get education out of a higher education environment when they're motivated by profit. They got a turnkey thing going on. They need the next student. You failed out, I got a
Yeah.
replacement for you. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of that going on. So we have a lot of people with a degree, a piece of paper that are not educated, similar to like a lot of these high school students and others. They just moving them forward and
Yeah.
not the way. And
That's very true.
it's an unfortunate situation that we have created in this country because of that.
No, it's so true. It's so true. I think that the college system has definitely cranked out. And it's interesting because college is not something you have to go to. So, it's I
Hmm.
think people look at it a little bit differently. So it isn't it's seen as predatory per se. It's like, well, you don't have to go if you don't want to go. And no one is forced to go. But I do think that there are definitely better ways to help young people prepare if they want to go to college and get more information. Thank God for the internet. Thank God that the internet has allowed us to get to a point where we have enough information and people are able to, really take a look and say, okay, you look up a YouTube video more than likely on college debt and whether you go, you know what I'm saying? There's enough information out there for you to kind of think
Make a
twice.
better
You know what I'm
decision.
saying? Versus just
Hmm.
listening to a guidance counselor
Right.
because you know what I mean? So it's it's an interesting thing. I think that education going forward into the future, I think education is going to be looked at a lot differently. I don't know if school costs are going to go down. What I do know is that there are a lot of colleges that are closing. Now, and I understand to a certain extent, I understand universities have to run as a business. I understand there's a cost involved. You have faculty, you have, the cost of running it. So there's no question. I'm not saying it all should be free. However, it's just like healthcare. The government feels that education is important in and of itself, then it may need to put more resources in it because at the end of the day, if you have people coming out with debt that doesn't match the income that they can make after, it just doesn't make sense. And those things are obviously upside down. It's too much debt and not enough income to cover it. So that's why people can't pay it. It just doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So if you take most people and you would have given them $100,000 to invest in something else, yeah, maybe many people may have blown it. Many people may have lost it, you know, but at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to do something with that money. So like I said, you could say, you know what, let's see. They could say, you know what, instead of going to school, pitch us your best idea. And instead of giving you $100,000 to go to for a 4-year, we'll put money to it. Just like a Shark Tank thing. People go for that all the time. So it's a matter of where you're going to put the money if you're going to charge that much to go to school. You know what I'm saying? So where things go in the future, we'll have to see. But I think that this is such a great topic to look at because, you know, some of us have kids who are past that age. Some of us have kids that are going to be that age. We have nieces, nephews, friends, things like that. And when they hit that age, man, they don't feel as much pressure to figure it out as they did before. But there's still that idea of what do I do? You know, just to put something else out here too, what we see now, and Alicia, to your point, even with your company, what we see now with tech has really changed because a lot of people I know in tech, I know a few people in tech who don't have 4-year degrees, and it's starting to go in that direction where tech is one of those things where people are they're not necessarily going to a 4-year for a computer science degree. You know, they're getting in tech programs that may take a year, 2 years to learn cybersecurity, to learn how to code, and other things in tech. So that's just a testament as to how education is changing. And I think colleges, I would say hopefully in the future, if they want to be competitive and keep people coming there, they'll have to make sure that it makes sense to people, you know, financially. So, you know, and G, you're in education, obviously. So what do you think? Obviously, you don't deal with the high school kids per se, but what do you think? How do you think things change, you know, when they get to that age, when you're dealing with high school kids?
As far as the decision making?
Yeah, like, do you think it's the high school counselors' job to really help them, guide them a little bit more, or do you feel like it's more like, you know, all the parents? Parents are definitely responsible, but I'm just saying, as far as the school system, do you feel like they should be a little bit more, you know, not liable, but more responsible?
Yes, I do. Like you said, like everyone's saying, like times have changed so much. So they should be presenting all the different options that, you know, that they could go, you know, with whatever they're thinking about, you know, as far as their career or, you know, at this point in their life. Yeah, there's so many options. Ooh, my light again. Ooh. There's just so many options, you know, out there. So if you're not presenting them to these kids, then you're doing a disservice to them. You know what I mean? Like you should just be totally open with them and not try to go by the book or the old ways, because that's out of here. You know, it's totally out of here. So yeah, I think they do need to do that. And hopefully they are doing that now.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I'm not
because
all the way tapped into, you know, teachers in high school level, but I do know a lot of parents, even at elementary, they're already looking, you know, like to middle schools that have different programs and stuff like that, that feed into certain high schools and stuff like that. So, kudos to the parents, you know, too, for already looking into things for their kids. So, yeah, that's super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I do see that now. I think, you know, people are more thinking about what their kids are going to do earlier. So I do notice that too, you know. It'll be interesting to see how things go forward as far as how people look at college. It's going to be a very interesting thing. And I don't know what's going to happen with student loan debt, but it's gonna be here for a long time, to say the least. So, you know,
That is
Absolutely.
true.
so
And
but we're gonna keep the show lean. No, go ahead.
no, I just wanted to touch back on one point, like earlier,
Yes.
when we're talking about the loans and all that stuff and the grants. One thing about those were like they were so enticing because you paid your classes off and then you had all this extra money.
Yeah.
Oh
Man,
man.
I know my friends, we were like, oh, wait a minute, and going shopping, doing all these things
Yeah.
with all this
Gee.
money. And it's like, okay, let me stay in here. And then I know next year I'm going to get all this extra money again. So that was really enticing for a lot of people too. You know what I mean? So, I
Tina,
mean, now, I
I'm
was
so
with that,
sorry. You know what?
but I wanted to bring that up.
I'm so
It's true.
sorry. You know what? I can't believe I forgot about the student loan refund. I cannot
That's
believe I
major. It was
forgot
major.
about that.
Yes. Yes. That was major.
My bad. That is so true. That student loan refund, man.
Mm-hmm.
People, and it's crazy because people knew when you went to apply
Yeah.
for that loan and you sat with a guidance, the financial loan officer, they would do the math and you'd look at the math and you know what your refund was going to
Yeah.
be.
Mhm.
That is such a great point because that is very enticing to an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very.
Back $2,000 or $3,000 when you ain't seen that kind of money
Exactly.
at that age. You know what I'm
I
saying?
have a
So
niece who kept going back to school. She knew she didn't want to go to school, and we were like, "Now, come on now, Nat. You know you don't need to go to." She was like, "I do. I think I really want to go to school." She was trying to get that check, and then she
yeah.
would, and then she would quit.
Yes.
She did like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, "Come on now."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh man, that is so true. There are a lot of people who want that student loan check,
Mm-hmm.
and they know they got to pay it back, but again, it's two
It's
lifetimes
light
away.
years
So,
away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
oh
I
man,
know a friend who that was her main purpose of like taking some classes. Like she knew she was going to get that money back, and she had 4 kids, and she was like, okay, if when I get this money back, I can pay for this and buy this, and all these things. She was just calculating everything in her head. So it was just like, dang, like it's
Hmm.
messed up that we have to think that way. But I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
it is.
I mean
It
that
really
was her
is.
reality. You know what I mean? She needed that
No,
money.
that's
So,
that's really a great point, and that really goes to show kind of how education on the university level has been twisted into something very different, over time, and
yeah,
we're living for the day. So
yeah.
we're gonna keep it going.
If
Oh, please go ahead, Ian. Please.
I know Alicia made a good point, and she used the term predatory, and that's
So did
really
Chat. We both said it.
right. So we really have to. It's unfortunate this government has supported a lot of predatory loan type situation, whether it was banking, et cetera, so on, and they even bailed them out. So now what's going on with these colleges and universities, it seems to be in the same theme, more or less to a certain degree. It's really, they really are preying. This country, I've become more aware of it in the past decade plus that they really are preying on its citizens in so many different ways and siphoning money from us to go upstream somewhere else. And this higher education shouldn't be higher costing. It shouldn't be that. And it's very unfortunate that, you know, because a lot of countries, just like we had the conversation last week about healthcare, a lot of countries, a lot of democracy, the democratic countries and around the world, they have free college, just like they
Yeah.
have free healthcare.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I just hope that, this crucial conversation hits home with a lot of other people who are tuning in because we have to realize that it's nice to say the slogan, we're the greatest country in the world.
Mm,
And it's just a slogan at this point because there's nothing really to support that as being an actual fact.
I
Well,
it
we're
would be the
like
greatest country
really
in the
low
world.
in education. Like
Yeah,
we claim we have so many claims. Like, we're really the most arrogant country in the world is what we are, because
that's
we have, like you're saying, to your point, we have so many claims of being number one. We're the best at this and that, and there's some things we're number one at, and there's some things where we're way down on that list.
Yeah.
We're a lot further down than people would believe, and we're just over here acting like everything's okay, and claiming to be the best,
it
and
remi-
that's
you're right, and it reminded me of everybody. Find this; it's on YouTube somewhere. The first episode, HBO used to have a series called the Newsroom, and the first opening from the first episode, it went viral. Where he was asked, "Why is America the greatest country in the world?" and his response was just so. It was amazing. And I would just encourage everybody to look for that. It's called The Newsroom, I believe it was called, and it was an HBO series. The first season, first episode, the pilot episode, the opening part. Check that out. He really hits on home. Matter of fact, if you can find it and you were to play it right now on this thing or edit it in, you will see exactly what you would love. That when you hear that,
I'll drop it
you're
in.
gonna be like, I gotta drop that. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing conversation. And I appreciate all your time as always. This is always a great time for me. I know everybody, obviously my sister's my sister, but everybody's different points I've met in my life. I love to bring crews together and just have these good conversations, because I think that this is what it's all about. For me, I love it. You know what I'm saying? And you know how it is, Ian, when you bring it together conversations, because it just spawns more thought. You get different perspective. And again, obviously, this stuff lives forever. When we put it out there on the internet, it lives forever. So hopefully people can take this information in, relate to it, and we hope for things to be better. So I hope for the education system, we can encourage the way they encourage everybody to go into debt. We can push in information to encourage people not to go into debt.
Yeah.
And thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Oh, come on. Always. I appreciate all of you. So we're going to wrap it. Anybody have anything they want to plug? Anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Seymour's Truck, Madison, New Jersey, the dopest food truck in the building. It also has an enclosed tent, BYOB, 326 Main Street, Madison, New Jersey, SEYMOURS truck on Instagram, as well as the website, Seymour'sTruck.com.
Yes. And it's going to be in the link, of course, as always.
All right.
In the description.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas to all of you all. Happy holidays.
Yes.
Definitely.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Yes.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody.
Everybody be safe, celebrate, have a good time.
Merry Kwanzaa. Merry Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. Yes. I love it.